Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of In Our Humble Opinion. My name is Jacob Cook. I'm very pleased to be joined, as always, by my co host, Brantley Weatherford. Brantley, how are you?
I'm doing well, Jacob. The summer is getting close to being over. Now, I know for you that's exciting news because you're not a big fan of the heat, but for me, I've been off of work because I'm a teacher for about a month and a half, and well, in a few weeks I'll be back, crank back up again. So
Well,
yeah,
that is unfortunate for you, but you know what's interesting that I found out this year is that the summer actually starts at the end of June, technically. The first day of summer, I think, was like the 22nd of June,
huh?
and it moves all the way into, I think, mid September.
Are are we talking normal climate areas? Or are we talking about Alabama?
We're talking more about the calendar itself.
Well, the calendar is wrong.
Well, I don't know who makes the rules, but I think the first day of summer was like June 22nd, which was baffling to me. But
Well, okay. If the summer is based on temperature, then the first day of summer is like May 1st.
well, that's how I would. Yeah, exactly. I would say like May, early May is whenever it starts, just based on the weather.
hmm
But I don't know. I thought
And
that was true. And interestingly enough, I know this from last year. The first day of winter is actually like mid December. It's towards the end of December.
who makes these calendars?
Look on your calendar, and you may
Huh.
see it. But
huh.
anyway, I digress. That was just
And
a little.
that does make a little sense though in Alabama because the last day of summer in Alabama is like December 1st. So it makes sense.
It is, yeah, and in some cases all the way to January.
That's something.
And
Nothing
some
like an
days,
80-degree Christmas.
well, I was about to say, in some years, rather, we are in shorts on New Year's.
I love it. It's wonderful. It
I
is
I
wonderful.
I wish it were colder, but anyway, I digress.
Jacob, your house is the Antarctica. Why do you want to be cold outside?
You know, everybody who visits will tell me this, but you know what? Pack a jacket because it's not
I
that cold in here.
I had like 3 blankets and I was shivering. I was like, man, it's cold.
It's not that cold in here, okay?
I felt like Peter in the Star Wars episode where he had to cut open the Yeti and get inside.
Hey, you know what? I just do what I can, okay? It's really hot outside. It feels great inside. It's just the way it is.
Yes, I would.
But apologies for the rambling early on. I just wanted to share that fact with everyone. I thought it was interesting. But anyway, moving on to the topic today, we do have a very interesting episode for you, as always. We have heard a lot of chatter in the media and other sources of entertainment about AI and how it's going to permeate our culture very soon. It already has in a lot of ways, but we're probably going to see a lot more of it in the future, in the near future, I should emphasize. And there has been a lot of different applications and industries that have been affected more than others up to this point. But Brantley and I thought it would be a fun discussion to have about the general use cases of AI, what we've seen already from it, what we expect to see in the future based on what all the engineers and professionals have indicated. And I thought that would make an interesting episode. So I think we're going to jump into a bit of what we already know, and it's all going to be very speculative. We don't have the expertise or the background to give a breakdown of how it operates, how it works. We don't have the expertise to break it down in that way, but just general discussion I thought would be perfectly applicable here. What do you think?
I certainly agree. Yeah, I don't want to synth society, so I'm down for it.
Well, we may be well on our way, and I thought I was listening to a podcast earlier that was breaking down some interesting industries that we've already seen AI take a hold of. Some of them you wouldn't necessarily think, like for example, law, which well, I guess we'll just start there. I noticed, actually, I saw another video last night where a lawyer was talking about how AI was already permeating the industry and how it was writing contracts and reviewing contracts, things of that nature. So, for example, in wills and probate cases, things like that. contract law, it was already being made use of to great effect. And unfortunately, like some of the lower rated associates, I heard were losing their positions because it was way more efficient to have AI scan through a contract for errors as opposed to a person, and they can do it much faster. So I'm curious as to your thoughts on how we as a society should implement such powerful technology, and do you think it's going to have more negative consequences early on, or do you think it's probably going to be a net gain as a society as we move further and further down this path?
Well, my question is, it's scanning for errors. Well, what kind of errors are we talking about? Like grammatical errors
Oh yeah,
or
grammatical, information, spelling. I mean, everything has to be perfect with contract law and
Mhm.
things of that nature. So yeah, we're talking hundreds and hundreds of pages, by the way, not just a 5-page contract. Some of these contracts are very, very extensive.
Well, I do understand the. Let's be practical here, Jacob. It is so much easier, makes things easier. I mean, these things right here make life easier. Let's be
Right.
honest. But also, these things right here have developed a society that is antisocial, anti a lot of things, and some people will disagree, but I think you and I agree that society has degraded over the years in terms of social interaction and community since the rise of smartphones and all that, and also, I'll get back to the contracts, and also uh, intellectually speaking. I mean, I
Sure.
know my students now, like, why do I need to learn this? Well, I can just pull up my phone and do it like this. So, like, yeah, you can use a calculator on your phone, and there was calculators back then, but you didn't rely on them as much unless you're in like rocket science, the higher up stuff, calculus. Okay, calculator makes sense, but for like multiplying fractions, yeah, it's irritating to learn at first, but once you get it, you don't need a calculator for that. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I would argue that most people who learn that type of information forget anyway.
Okay, well, yeah, but
Like, I feel like there's some things we learn that are
well, yeah.
required at the time, and it's good to have some familiarity with it. But at the end of the day, 5 years down the road, the
What about
majority of people aren't going to be able to reproduce things that they learned in grade school.
okay? Well, what about like 50 times 5? Can you
Oh, I,
reproduce
I
that?
agree. Like arithmetic, multiplication,
Yeah,
basic
basic
math
stuff.
should be taught, but like fractions, decimals, a lot of people aren't going to be working with that in their day to day life. I don't think.
Maybe
Not
not
complicated
fractions, but
fractions, but
I would
anyway.
say decimals you work with every day because of money. But
Well, yeah,
my point
perhaps.
is, stuff that makes things easier in life have also had consequences on the human themselves.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So I apply that to this thing. Yeah, it saves time, obviously. Um, it's definitely going to be accurate in some cases, and I'll explain in a second. But think about the human element. That person is losing a job that they put in hard work to get. I'm sure a contract reviewing job for law contracts is not something you just walk in. Hey, I'll review your contracts. I'm sure there's a lot
Yeah,
of
yeah.
schooling, a lot of certification, all that you got to go through. And now they're out of a job because a computer replaced them. They're like, oh, well, the computer's faster and easier. Okay, well, there's going to be consequences long term for humanity because now people are out of jobs for stuff that they need, and the stuff, the only jobs that are going to be available, and even those could be threatened by AI, are like minimum wage jobs, and that's not going to have a thriving economy if everybody's working minimum wage with a few elites here and there running these
Right.
jobs. And in terms of accuracy, I don't even know if having AI scan your contract is accurate. And I'll explain that now. Last week for school, I think I told you this on the microphone. I had to read 2 chapters in a book.
Mhm.
I read them, and then I had to write a paper. One of the requirements for the paper was to have 90% or higher score on Grammarly. Okay.
Mhm.
Here's the problem. When I went to Grammarly, it points out something that isn't really, it isn't an error. Like an example I told you, I had text in a sentence because I'm talking about the text I just read. So, yes, I'm going to use the word text quite a bit. And it wasn't an overuse of the word text. It wasn't like text and the text and the text and the text. It was like the text here did this and then da 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 da. As they read the text, da 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 da. It was maybe four text, the word text, and like, I don't know, 14 sentences. So not much.
Mhm.
And it counted against me as an error because I had used the word text too much. So I'm like, what? That's just one example. Another example, it completely changed my sentence to make it, as it claimed, understandable. I was like, what? But it changed my sentence from one meaning to another. And this is AI, it's Grammarly, from one sentence to another. And I was like, that's nothing. It has nothing to do with what I just wrote. So I don't even know if AI is that accurate because it will change stuff that it thinks is better, but you lose the message that you're trying to, get out there, or whatever
Well,
whatever it may be.
well, I would argue a couple points. One, not to say that Grammarly isn't sophisticated, but the AI that's in question here is far more. It's using quantum computing that is far more sophisticated than a public available piece of software. Not to say
Fair
that it
enough.
isn't accurate or anything, but we're talking about computing on a very, very powerful scale. And as it relates to the industry, there was a political speaker who made a speech in Britain a few weeks ago who I thought made a good point where he said something to the effect of automation is taking a lot of blue collar jobs and AI is replacing a lot of white collar jobs. And how do we move forward as a society and balance between the two? And I thought that was an interesting point because it's true. I mean, yeah, I mean, a lot of these lawyers probably aren't going to lose their job per se, at least not within the next few years. But as AI becomes more readily available, and unfortunately in business, time is money, and if you can literally have a piece of software or a computer basically replace someone that you're paying a salary to, and they can do the job more accurately and faster. As a business, why wouldn't you do that? The problem is, where does the ethics come into it? Where does the moral argument come into it? But again, the problem is progress as a whole is probably going to win most arguments. If it's better, faster, and more efficient, you're probably not going to be able to compete with that if you're in one of these industries where AI is going to really make a difference. The medical
Yeah.
field is another example of this. On the podcast I was listening to earlier, they were referencing the fact that in colon cancer screenings and colonoscopies for polyps and things like that, AI is already being used, and it's far more accurate than physicians and other doctors, up to 50% more accurate up to this point, and it's not even used on a mass scale. They even went as far as to say if doctors' offices aren't practicing with AI, it could be considered malpractice because of how accurate and efficient it is. Now, if I'm a patient, I think I would want the most accurate information possible in the quickest amount of time. So if AI is available to the public, and I hope it will be, although it could be extremely expensive, who knows? I would definitely want to use that in my treatment. So I can see a lot of ways where it's incredibly there's a lot of potential. There's an incredible amount of potential, but at the same time, as you were saying, it's very important that I don't know how to implement it ethically in a lot of cases. I don't know what the answer
I
is.
I guess in the case of the medical field, um, screenings and whatnot, like colonoscopies and whatnot. I don't know how, and I could be wrong. I don't know. I'll just put it out there. I don't know how abundant. I don't know how to say this. I guess in certain situations, AI would be fine because a doctor's not going to be using that for everything. I don't think. But if
Right.
AI came in and completely replaced a doctor, then I would say, well, now we have an issue because, yeah, I want the most accurate stuff too. I'm not going to deny that. I want the most accurate stuff. And then but then you have this whole field that's just wiped out by artificial intelligence. And now, it goes back to the whole economic thing. We're suffering now because these people now have to work these basic jobs. And there's nothing wrong with working minimum wage jobs. But in terms of contributions to the economy and society as a whole, it's not going to, I don't know, I just feel like we would regress.
I mean, it certainly would seem that way in certain areas. But to be more specific about the medical industry, they were more or less talking about certain practices. Radiology, for example. An expert predicted that once AI becomes more mainstream, that's going to completely destroy the radiology industry because AI can read x-rays and test way faster and more efficient than any person can. So there would almost be no need for radiologists anymore, which is a shame
Yeah.
because a lot of people that I knew in school were going to school for that. But again, if a computer can do something faster, if AI can predict, diagnose, and have all of these different capabilities that a person can't, why would you not, as a society, want that as an option? If you can have an X-ray to screen you for cancer, or heck, even just to, you know, see if there's any disease or something going wrong, and the AI can spit out a very, very accurate report up to, let's say, 99% accurate in a fraction of the time it would take doctors to interpret those exact same images, why, again, why would we not do that? I think that would be a net gain for society, even if unfortunately a lot of people lose their job. But at the same time, maybe they could focus that time and energy that they've taken to get that education into a different field of medicine.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always my only concern, and I think it's a concern of yours, is what if AI took over the mass, like everything, AI does
Right.
this.
Yeah.
But I think, and as you and I speak, right now we're not worried about that in our fields. I mean, at least I'm not. But in other fields, that's a concern. But I agree. I think it is, if it's beneficial to humanity as a whole, I'm sure there's plenty of other options out there for, whatever it is you want to. But it is concerning because people, devote so much time, devote all this stuff, their expenses, loans, all this, and now they're just being replaced by a computer. Like, well, now what? But I think it's kind of a gray area as we speak. Right now it's a gray area. We don't really know much.
Yeah, we don't. I mean, this is sort of like being on the doorstep of the internet without
Yeah,
realizing just how impactful this is going to be in 15, 20 years. I don't think anybody really understood how powerful the internet would be, or how instrumental and synonymous it is with each of our lives, but
yeah.
we have to have it now. I mean, there's no,
Unfortunately,
yeah, I
well,
mean,
unfortunately,
I mean,
it's got
yeah,
its bonuses.
exactly. And I think the same thing could be said with AI. It's a double-edged sword. There's going to be a lot of really wonderful applications that's going to help a lot of people, but at the same time, there's the potential for this to do immense harm, and there's the potential for people to misuse and weaponize, and that could
Yeah,
be very, very scary as well. But I'm sort of in the middle. I think that I would approach the future with a healthy amount of skepticism, but at the same time, I absolutely see the potential
well,
in what it's capable of. But,
you've always been a sympathizer, so
well,
let's keep that in
Fallout
mind.
4, Railroad, you know how it is.
No, well, in the case, like you were mentioning the internet, how effective it is. It is. It's really, we're on it right now. We're getting conversation out there.
Ironic, yeah. But
But I do think there's areas where it is not as effective, and people may or may not disagree with me. And I would say education field would be an area, and I have proof because I'm a teacher. We last year, the year before, a ton of our material was on the computer. That they wanted us to use the computer, which online stuff, all that. All right. Jacob, I had them on this site called iExcel. It's a learning site for like science, a lot of subjects, but mostly I used it for math. And you go to your grade level, and you select a topic. And I think it was fractions that I selected. I had these students doing fractions on iExcel, multiplying all that stuff,
Mm-hmm.
weeks on end. Weeks on end. And finally, I was like, all right, we've done enough. I reviewed it as well. It wasn't like I wasn't teaching it. I was teaching it while we also did this thing. I would teach it. We practice pencil and paper, and then we use iExcel. Never clicked. Never clicked. And I think in education, a more traditional approach, and I may be wrong. I could be wrong. I'll admit it. Is more beneficial and helpful for teaching everyday arithmetic and basic knowledge than
Mm.
relying on computers and internet. I know when I was at Wallace, I struggled with math a ton. The classes that I passed at Wallace were ones that didn't require me to do a bunch of computer stuff
Yeah.
because I had a teacher there telling me what to do, writing it down, showing me. And I think that's an example where internet can be in my case. I could be completely wrong. It's my take on it. Where internet is good in a lot of other areas, but in that instance, I don't think it is. I think we could see the same thing with AI. The screening stuff, I think, can definitely be a major positive. But then if it, takes over a fast food worker's job, just a basic job, takes it over, now what? They're
Well,
in that job as a teenager most of the time because they need work. If that's taken away by a computer, now what?
yeah, I mean, we're kind of seeing it though. Automation and AI and sophisticated technology. Look at the newest self-checkout machines at your local retail store.
I
And
love them. I'm not
I,
gonna
I'm
lie.
about to say I'm the same way. I will refuse to go to a line that's not self-checkout. I love it. Absolutely love it. It's great. So
Yeah.
I mean, like but every one of those is someone else's position potentially, or at least a
Well,
few. But
I don't know because I see a lot of people still working in like Publix
yeah, you do.
that are just standing around. And then, no, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I mean, what a job. You can stand there and do nothing. But I'll argue this with self checkout. You still have to do something in self checkout. And I will guarantee you, I self checkout better than the actual cashiers check you out. Some of them are slow and terrible. I do it better. But I digress.
Well, I mean, I don't disagree with that. I'm just suggesting that it could, like, for example, whenever we used to go to the grocery store, early 2000s, late 90s, there was a bagger in almost every line. There was a cashier in almost every line,
Yeah.
and they were helping people get their groceries back in their cart and or taking them all the way to the car. And
Yeah.
now it's just not the same. Walmart has more self-checkout stations than they do actual traditional checkout lanes. And I love it though. Like I mentioned, I would much prefer.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it kind of goes back to that antisocial thing that we talked about before. Like whenever I go out shopping, whether it be for groceries or whatever, I want to have as few interactions with people as possible. Like I don't want to have
Yeah.
to. I mean, I just am. I'm an introverted person anyway, but I don't want to have to tell somebody how to bag the groceries, or I don't want to
Yeah.
have to ask questions about where something is. I just want to know where it is. I want to grab it. I don't want to talk to anybody. I want to get out. Which again is probably not the healthiest thing if everybody's doing that on a societal level, but it's just the way things are at the moment because things are
I-
just crazy now, I guess. But anyway,
I'm with you. If there are very few people, Jacob, that if I see out in public, I will actually say something to. I
yeah,
mean, it's that small of a margin because I'm with you. I'm just going out to get stuff done and leaving. But I don't know if if self checkout's such a bad thing, because there's
No,
still
I don't.
people
I don't think
working
it
the
is.
shelves. You don't have AI doing the shelves. You don't have AI cleaning the floors.
Not
You
yet.
know, see, that's when it becomes a problem. That's when you become a sympathizer when they start working the floors and all that stuff. But
Hey,
I
but
think
the thing is, in truth, and just to play devil's advocate a bit for the employer, how many
yeah,
people do you think have those positions and just, as we've talked about in our one of our recent episodes, just quit, just don't show up? Now you don't have someone to do the job. If you had AI who was going to clean or something, you would never have to worry about attendance. You would never have to worry about wages. The job's going to get done, and it's probably going to get done a heck of a lot more efficiently than it was prior.
I
So
think
again,
you
where do you draw the line?
I think you underestimate human. But
Well,
based on the people you're talking about, the ones that I,
maybe
you
I
want to take
am,
a
but at the same time, I've definitely worked with a lot of people in my time, and there were a lot of people that I thought you were very expendable. And I hate to say it, but it's true.
I think one issue we have as a society now is work work ethic. But I think part of the low work ethic, poor work ethic, I can't say it, is
Thank you.
due to wages being paid. And I always see these posts on Facebook saying, "I can't get anybody to work," yada yada yada. And then I see someone comment like, "Yeah, nobody wants to work for you 40 hours a week, making $1 above minimum wage, and a job that's not minimum wage. While you take all the profits,"
I agree.
which I think is a valid point. I don't
Hmm.
want to work. Like if it's a fast food restaurant, sure, I get it. But say something where like you're loading timber every day, we'll pay you $9 an hour, and that extreme job. I mean, I won't say super extreme, but loading timber, that's not easy. You're probably out in the sun, outside, definitely outside, and then you're paying $9. And those are the type of company or businesses that post on Facebook. Can't find anybody to work. Like, well, because you're not
But
paying people.
imagine this picture, if
Yeah.
you will.
All right.
Now, I understand I'm kind of coming at this whole conversation from more of an idealistic standpoint. There's obviously or rather, a lot of technical details to work out. But imagine the fast food restaurant situation for a moment. Imagine you've probably been into McDonald's. I don't eat there often at all. In fact, I don't particularly care for it, but
I agree.
sometimes you do what you got to do. At most McDonald's now that I've seen, and I've been in a few of the past few years, they have automated kiosks where you can order. And they're in the middle of the lobby almost. You just kind of, it's exactly what you would imagine. It's just a giant touch screen. Basically, you go through the whole thing, you put your order in, you even pay. You don't have to interact with a person. So imagine that went more mainstream and every fast food restaurant had those kiosks. And you got to, as an owner, maybe a franchisee of whatever it was, you got to lay off maybe half the staff, mainly cashiers. Would it
Yeah.
not be possible if two or three jobs that used to be taken up by some individuals that perhaps weren't very good, maybe you cut the worst of your staff, the least productive, then you could potentially pay that remaining half even more? And if their morale for their position went up as a result of a significant raise, maybe they not only show up on time more often, but maybe they have a livable wage now and they can actually provide for their families and or get pay for college and or pay back student loans, whatever the case may be, because there's more money to go around because AI has sufficiently increased productivity of positions that were lackluster before. Maybe that's a possible situation. Again, very idealistic. Again, there's a lot of issues that probably and would arise from that, but just to paint the hypothetical or hypothesis or
Yeah.
hypothetical, I should say.
I do like that idea. I do think though it's a very niche position in
Oh,
fast
sure.
food because the cashiers in fast food aren't just cashiers; they're also working in the kitchen, taking orders, all that stuff. But that would be, I would like that. You cut out two positions, put in those kiosks, 3 positions. Now you have more money to pay your other employees more. Yeah, but I think one ethical dilemma we would face in that situation is people being greedy and like, oh, I'm making more money now because I don't have as many people to pay, and I'm still paying these other employees the same wage, which that's definitely going to happen because humans are greedy. Let's be honest.
Oh, I wouldn't necessarily expect the owner to turn all their profit into, back into the business. I would probably take a bit more, sure, but I would definitely take care of the people who take care of my business as best I
You
can.
would,
Oh, I
but
know, but I know.
there's a lot of greedy people out there.
No, I
I
know.
think
I
the
know.
best example is, well, from the Bible. When you're faced with the temptation, how strong are you then? And when people are faced with greed, I mean, look at our RuneScape days, Jacob.
Yeah.
The more we got, we always wanted more. We always wanted more.
I'm glad
We
you
never
brought that
wanted.
up.
Yeah.
Because I have a quick point to make. We're about half hour into the episode and we haven't brought up ChatGPT one time, but I assure you we're about to talk about ChatGPT.
Oh yes.
So this AI is very interesting. A lot of people have been using it for a variety of different applications. Some of it has vastly impressed me, and others I thought were just people's never ceasing amazement to be stupid. But one thing that I saw that was interesting as it relates to RuneScape was, and I think I shared this with you, but the botting that people have done with this AI is really fascinating. So, for the audience who may not be in the know, RuneScape is an MMORPG. You play a character, and there's a lot of different skills you can train in the game. And a lot of it's monotonous and time consuming. So, a lot of people will create bots and scripts that will play their character for them while they're away. It's completely against the rules, but people get away with it using sophisticated, IT, different techniques and whatnot. And ChatGPT has helped people do this. And they have created scripts and bots that can not only mimic real life players in terms of how they play the game, but can also even speak to players who question their character in real time and have an actual conversation with people that sounds authentic. And there's a video that I saw on YouTube where somebody was testing this, and they were having their bot challenged by real players, and the bot spoke as if he was a real player. It was really, really crazy. And they passed. I mean, the people had no idea that they were talking to an AI. They thought they were talking to a person. It was even trash talking players who had bad skills. I mean, I'm not kidding. It was like, I just looked you up on high scores and your skills suck. I mean, I was like, are you kidding me? So, I mean, that's one of the cooler things I've seen from ChatGPT. There's been other things, but one of the more niche, I'm sure. But that's incredible.
Well, what's funny is people who play RuneScape are super concerned over like, oh no, I don't know if I'm getting scammed. Da, 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 da. But us looking at it, we think, oh, that's very interesting and cool. Even though we play,
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
too worried about it. I think it becomes a problem though. Is have you ever heard of deep fakes?
I've heard the term, but I can't speak very intelligently about it.
Deep fake is where people have AI voices of like famous people, and they have it. It's very sophisticated. They could take like say Donald Trump or Joe Biden and record a whole message with them
Hmm.
and put it out in public, and people would actually think it's them.
Interesting.
Which that pose in RuneScape, it is what it is. But stuff like that in the real world, that's concerning.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. I can definitely see more
But
malicious applications than anything else.
Yeah. Have you seen the chat or heard about Chat GPT writing obituaries?
Yeah, I have.
I have brought one up. I saw on Reddit the other day. I'm going to read it for you. This is a Chat GPT obituary it wrote. All right. Brenda Tent retired from living at the age of old, surrounded by family and natural causes. A librarian from birth, Brenda was an avid collector of dust. She had a sweetheart and married her high school. Cat. She loved having hobbies and helping her sons to be disadvantaged youths. She had no horses but thought she did. The church gave her a choir because she sang like a bird and looked like a bird, and Brenda was a bird. She owed us so many poems. The funeral will be held in 1977 at Heaven, and lo, of flowers send Brenda more life. That's a chat GPT obituary. Someone
me.
had right. Just like,
She sang like a bird and looked like a bird.
it was a bird.
You put her in our choir.
She loved
Oh my
having
God.
hobbies and helping her sons to be disadvantaged youths.
Isn't that something?
See, that's where chat GPT is an issue.
I don't know what parameters they put to make it spit that out, but that is quite something. That is far different from the things I've seen people use it for, I must say.
And then the picture of it is it's like got 4 eyes and multiple fingers and hands. But that also brings up another issue I see with AI. And that goes into the whole dating world, per se. Or just I'm not trying to sound weird. Reproduction world. Japan has an issue with low reproduction. Like they're falling in reproduction. And some people are happy about that. Some people don't care. But, I personally want to see the world grow, because humans are alive, God's creation. I want to see it. And we're starting to see that now with AI. There's sites where you can talk exclusively to AI men and AI women. You don't have to leave your home. I think it's even more dangerous. It's the same thing. There's AI pornography now where you can interact with it. And I think it's a very dangerous thing for society because now people are not going to they're not going to go out to seek that social interaction, that feeling of love that they, other humans can give because now they have their AI computer to do all that for you. I mean, there's AI girlfriends you can have. There's AI boyfriends you can have. And I think that's an area of artificial intelligence that is going to be super detrimental to society. We already know that pornography is detrimental to society and all the other things that are tied to it that we don't even talk about, like trafficking. Now imagine artificial intelligence. People are going to be, as we quote all the time, as the boomers say, going to be zombies because they're going to have no social interaction at all. They'll have no reason to leave their home. So I think it's a major cause of concern because there's already people out there selling these things. Get you an AI girlfriend. She'll do whatever you want. Which is weird.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's one of the applications of AI that obviously we don't agree with. Obviously, it's a problem. But the issue is that whether you're for AI or you're against it, the reality is simply that every major corporation on the planet is investing millions and millions and millions of dollars into its development. And it's coming. It's going to be here. We'll probably see a dramatic increase in its usage over the next 5 to 10 years. And it's one of those situations where it's like a cell phone almost in my mind. It's whether you agree that they should exist or not. They've been here for the better part of almost 2.5 decades, I would say. And they're here to stay. And they've only gotten more sophisticated. They've only gotten more powerful. But as a consequence, everybody has one because you have to. I mean, you can't operate successfully in society without it. And I think AI is going to become pretty much the same in terms of how instrumental it becomes in all of our lives.
Yeah.
But again, I think that there's a great opportunity here if we can get this right as a society. If we if we can regulate it in a way that's sustainable, that is
Yeah.
appropriate for the different industry, there's a great deal of potential for the powerful technology that is on our doorstep. It's just going to be a matter of, well, the powers that be, I guess the elites, the engineers, etc., to make sure that the implementation doesn't affect the few but affects everyone.
Yeah.
So we'll
And
see.
like you said, it's going to rely, unfortunately, a lot on the people who are inventing this stuff. And, there's Elon Musk out there. I don't know. A lot of people are for Elon, a lot of people are against him. He has concerns about AI. He
Yeah,
just
yeah,
released his own AI, made a new AI company. And he says there's a lot of threats behind AI. Like there's a lot of potential harm behind it. So, he's someone that I'm hoping will try to, with his AI company, to, limit the capabilities, not
yeah.
to reduce harm. Um, and then there's other AI companies. There's been talks, could AI uh, be like the Terminator eventually? And
Yeah, there's some people who subscribe to that. I personally do not, but
here's why I don't, and it's coming from a religious perspective. In my mind, and not everybody's going to agree with me, this is just my thought. In my mind, it's never going to get to the point of that because I believe that our Lord will step in and stop it before that happens. But to a non religious person, that's a major concern. And I understand why, It's getting smarter. It can think faster. Well, it doesn't even think, it just computes faster than we do. And before you know it, here we are.
yeah, I agree. And I think that, again, it's just going to unfortunately require some of the most untrustworthy people on the planet, that being politicians, to implement this in a prosperous and ethical way. But I would also like to add, real quick, another point I'd like to make before we run out of time. Another application of AI that I have been following for a couple years now, that I'm very passionate about personally. For those of you who are watching us on YouTube, you can see my shirt. It's a chess shirt. Popular YouTuber by the name of Eric Rosen sells them. He's a very good player, very highly respected player in the community. And chess is something that I'm hugely passionate about. I don't know if I've ever brought that up on the show, but I love chess. I play it almost every day, and I study and watch the best play in the world whenever they have tournaments. And chess has had a dramatic impact, or rather, I should say, AI and computing has had a dramatic impact in chess. And I won't spend too much time on this because I know not everybody's interested in this. But in 1999, I believe, Deep Blue was IBM's supercomputer. It beat Garry Kasparov, which was a big deal because Garry Kasparov was one of the best players that has ever lived, and at the time, he was the strongest player on the planet. He beat the tech the first game. They made some modifications. I think a year later, they've had a rematch, and the computer beat him. And the second match, there was a very famous quote from him. Whenever he was asked how the game was going, he said, "I'm worried because the computer is not calculating, it's thinking." And AI has sort of taken that and run with it over the past couple of years. And now computers are using a lot of uh, neural processors, I think, or something to that effect, basically trying to create more organic thought. And they have vastly passed the capabilities of human beings. I mean, to the point where not even the strongest computer, but let's say a few levels down from the strongest, can easily beat world champions and the best players on the planet. We actually have learned a lot about chess over the past year and a half or so, solely based on games that are played by AI. Things we didn't think were possible, draws we didn't think were possible, but the computer showed us the way. I bring all that up to say there are a lot of, well, I don't say a lot, but there are some who think that AI will eventually replace the experts in a lot of different fields. And what happens to the experts once that happens? Do they get more sophisticated in their understanding of whatever it is they've been replaced by? Or do they have to find something else? In the case of chess, we still have the grandmasters, we still have the best players in the world, and the AI that we use to analyze the games are simply there to teach us as
Mhm.
opposed to replace us. But obviously, that's chess, right? I mean, we're not talking about life saving industries or the military or anything of that nature. So I'm curious to see, and again, we don't have an answer. We won't know until we see it, but I'm just curious as to where we go once the experts are no longer the experts.
Well, in the sports world, there aren't any experts. They're all terrible. To be honest,
Well,
for the most part, I don't know. I mean, that's a good question. You know, when does it become there's nobody working? It's just all AI,
right.
and I think that presents a problem to even the ones creating the stuff implementing it. Because if there's nobody working, there's nobody with money, and if there's nobody with money, then there's no product being sold. So nobody's buying, and then eventually the company crashes. So I think that is a barrier for now, unless there's someone figures a way around it. Which I don't see how there's a way around of not having people work and
Yeah.
them still have money. But I don't know. I know that's a good question. It's funny in games like chess, strategy games. AI is just absolutely ridiculous. But then in a game like Battlefield that you and I play, when we go against AI opponents, right? Oh yeah, this is AI because they're terrible.
I was about to say, what if the AI permeates the next Battlefield game and we play against an AI squad and they just completely spawn trap us? We get absolutely deleted. The day Brantley is beaten by AI is the day that I uninstall the game, I think.
I appreciate it. You too. If we're both get just pummeled by AI, like
I
what
think
do we
Brantley would
do?
uninstall the game. I think he would probably not only rage quit, but I would probably feel a disturbance in the force.
You know, you know how I get sniped all the time. I
Yeah.
would be getting pinned across the map from the
Like,
AI
as soon as you spawn in, it just keeps killing you over and over and over and over again.
because it would measure the bullet drop.
Yeah.
It would measure the lead time. Like, all right, he's
Even you get into like an armored vehicle and it still like penetrates you with like full metal jacket or something and kills you instantly.
when that happens, Jacob, I'm going back to my RPGs.
I'll go
I'm
back to
done.
chess. Oh wait, they've taken over chess too,
Yeah.
so I can't do
Well,
that.
what's there to play? Jacob, meet me outside. We'll play basketball. The
Yeah, listen,
basketball's AI. Basketball guy, he was AI. That's how he always knew people were playing.
maybe he was. Who knows?
You know
Oh
what
my
you should do? You should go back over there once in a while and see if he's out there.
god. Yeah, the legend of the random basketball player. If he was AI,
He was
he's
AI the
probably.
whole time. That's why he never really taught. He knows that. He just pointed for you setting picks.
We'll have to tell that story at some point so the audience understands. But yeah, that was very strange. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, I know that automated cars and sophisticated technology have already started making their way over the past few years now. I don't know where it is in terms of its reliability, but from what I understand, automated cars are more reliable than I thought they would be at this point.
Well,
I don't
I
know
don't know.
exactly
'Cause
how much. I
I
mean, I
remember
wouldn't get one now. It would be several years before I would consider it, but
I
we'll see
remember a few
about that.
years ago, automated car, or not a few years, a few months ago, there's a story about automated car that got into a serious wreck.
Yeah,
I
I
was
mean,
like,
I've heard it running over people before, so
yeah. So I'd rather drive myself.
personally,
That's
yeah,
just
I
me.
mean, I'd
I
rather,
trust myself more than I trust. I don't care how tested it is, and it's got the computing power of Albert Einstein. I don't care. I know how to drive myself. I feel safer with me driving. And there's other drivers who the AI car won't protect you against, unless they pull out like some barriers and I don't know some sci-fi stuff, Mad Max stuff.
yeah, for sure. As it relates to sci-fi, though, and I know we're not talking about technology that exists, or rather that ever could exist. I don't think, at least not within the next several decades. But imagine like a piece of technology that was as sophisticated as what was it from the Avengers movies? Was it Jarvis? That like super AI that Iron
Oh
Man
yeah,
used. I don't remember its
yeah,
name. I think it was Jarvis, but I could be wrong. Imagine something like that was like a personal assistant.
yeah.
Like would you ever incorporate something like that into your life that like knew you on a personal level and spoke to you like he does in the films? Would that ever be something that would interest you, or would you be too concerned about that?
No, I don't want that thing.
Oh, I think it would be awesome.
Are you kidding? Nah, that'd be weird, man. It's like watching you every movement,
I
taking
mean,
in
I think it'd be
data.
awesome. Not taking your data, but like just
Yeah,
I mean, I
Jacob.
guess it does, but
Have you seen uh those AI produced films? People say they ask AI to produce a film about Earth, and they all end in the destruction of Earth and humanity. Have you seen that?
maybe it is like Terminator. I'm not
They
worried
have.
about
It's
that though.
weird.
I'm just not.
I don't want some artificial intelligence knowing anything about me.
But you know what I'm talking about, right? How it
Yes, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
okay.
I don't care. It's weird. And
What
you
a,
know what? It got corrupt in the end. And
well,
what did they have to do? They had to fight it.
what about like the what is it? I forgot what they called it, but it was in Rogue's End, the Star Wars movie. That robot AI that he turned from the Empire to the Rebellion that was sort of like his sidekick. I don't remember what they called it.
No, I don't want that. You know why? Because that means they have emotions now, and they have
You know,
critical thought.
you're just like the Detective Spooner from iRobot.
Yeah, and what happened in iRobot? They started taking over.
I'm
Did
not
they
saying I
not?
would want that necessarily, but
You're a synth sympathizer. You've never left it.
well, you just, no, I
Hmm?
mean, we'd have, on a more serious note, we'd have to be very careful.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, very, very careful, I think. It's already smarter than us in a lot of different areas. I guess that's the point of it, but still, you gotta be careful. There are some professions that I think a human being has to be exactly that, a human being, and it has to bring our approach to the table as opposed to just running code and calculations, which, by the way, for all the programmers out there, apparently ChatGPT and other AI can code things much more quickly and efficiently. That's another industry that's probably going to be completely replaced by AI within the next few years, I would imagine. So,
Good luck.
that's yeah. I mean, imagine we'll probably be playing games in the near future that have been almost completely generated by AI,
I don't want that junk.
but we'll see.
It takes away the human element to it, Jacob. I love that human element. What are the best games? Human.
Hey,
What are
if
the
the
worst
games that are
games?
coming out
Human.
now, with the exception of a very few, are indicative of human beings being involved, they can cut that crap out. I don't want any more half baked, patched on the first day, horrible
Starfield's gonna be
quality.
like that.
God, dude, I'm hoping.
You know it is, Jacob.
I'm
It's
hoping
a
it's not,
Bethesda
man.
game.
But I'm hoping that AI can come in and fulfill those, because I understand it's very, very, very difficult and time consuming to make modern, AAA titles these days. So I'm hoping
Yeah.
maybe AI can be implemented in such a way that it relieves some of that workload for the developers, and maybe they can focus more on actually telling a good story. Or
This is my guarantee, as Charles Barkley say. Starfield would have a day one patch. Guarantee.
I don't really care if it has a day one patch if it works.
Well, it doesn't work if it has a day one patch.
I meant like after the patch. Like if the patch actually fixes things and it runs well post patch, then I'm fine with it. But
Maybe it'll
Pokemon got a patch last year, like a week later, and the game is still absolute. It's just a dumpster fire. It's a dumpster fire's dumpster fire.
I warned you about the game, and you said, "Oh, man, I love the series." I warned you. I did everything in my power.
This is the problem. The Generation 9 Pokemon that they introduced look really good. They look awesome. There's several of them that look really, really good. They're very well designed.
Looks good, and we know how that turns out.
Which one? What now?
Call of Duty always looks good, and we know how that turns out.
Nah, that's not true.
Well, don't tell me you weren't hyped when you saw that Modern Warfare trailer a few years ago.
No, I truthfully haven't been so put off on that series.
Oh, okay. Battlefield 2042. Don't tell me you weren't excited for that.
Yeah, I was about to pre-order it.
Boom. There we go.
But I mean, it's good now.
A year later, Battlefield 4 is considered one of the best ever. It took 6 months before it even worked.
But that's what I'm talking about. We can't accept this anymore. Maybe AI can be our salvation in that area. We just got to have a vow of faith. I'm saying in faith, Brantley. I'm saying in faith.
You got to learn to go fishing. I'm not going to do the laugh here, but I don't know. I mean, I guess there's benefits to some AI, but I also have concern about it. You know?
I think probably the most frightening thing is if you're anti-AI is that it's going to happen. Like.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt.
I mean, it's not like, yeah, this is probably 10 years down the road. No, I mean, it's happening now. And will probably be more impactful in your life within the next 3 years than you may want it to be. But I think for those listeners who are very opposed to it, just try to have an open mind. Try to learn as much as you can about what it can and can't do. Of course, you kind of have to trust the sources on that. So if you don't trust that, then I don't know what to tell you. But, just try to have an open mind about the future. Yeah.
And you'll be fine.
I think.
Hopefully.
And that's great advice. Absolutely. 100%. But anyway.
It's a scary thing and a cool thing. So we'll see. Yeah. Also, let me put this out there. I don't want the AI in video games to be smarter than me because I'm not getting wrecked in every game I play. Hear that, developers?
Well, you kind of do now, so.
What? I don't get wrecked in. Boy, you're asking me to pull up stats, right?
No. No, we don't need to do that.
Jacob, what's your KD?
Anyway, guys, that's a great episode.
Yeah, this is great. Huh? What's your win percentage? What's your accuracy on your guns?
Well, I think that's going to do it for today. What say you, my friend? I think this has been a great discussion.
Yeah, it has. It's a very, very interesting topic. There's definitely going to be, like Jake, you were saying, in the next few months, next year, too, I think we're going to see a lot more on the horizon in AI. I think there's going to be a lot of fields with AI out there, and we'll just have to go with what we got. Hope for the best.
I agree. I think we just have to, take my own advice. I try to learn as much as I can about it. There have been some really cool applications too. I know we're at time, but just real quick. I mean, people have been using ChatGPT in particular to review resumes, write, help with poetry, help with art. I think there's a lot of really cool things that you can do with it. But as we've harped on a few times now, and I hate to repeat the point, but we just have to acknowledge that there's a lot of potential for very positive outcomes, and then there's the potential for very negative ones. So I hope that we as a society can learn and implement it ethically and hopefully in a way that impacts everybody for the better. But I guess that sounds like wishful thinking, but we'll have to see in time. But I guess that's more than enough rambling on that. I just felt like reemphasizing that point one more time. But do you have anything else to add, Brant, before we conclude here? I know we're at time.
No, just excited so far. Our YouTube, I would say, has blasted off. I mean, we got
for sure.
Getting views, getting subscribers, and we appreciate everybody watching, listening, and subscribing on both YouTube and on the listening sites. And today's episode was very fun, and I think we got a few good ones coming up. I mean, we always think they're good, but
I
leave that to the audience. And we're excited about more episodes that we got coming. So stay tuned.
Yeah, I agree. I want to just reemphasize my gratitude as well for everyone who's listening to us on either our audio directories. We haven't forgotten about you. We thank you so much for tuning in each week. We really do. And for our YouTube audience as well, we've had a great start so far, we think. We just love to see all the interaction and the continued support on that platform as well. And if there's any suggestions or anything that we could do to improve the format of the show, we're always open to constructive criticism. So you can send us an email, or you can leave us a comment or a review or a rating on, if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or something like that. We always really appreciate the feedback and the interaction. And I guess other than that, we have some great episodes coming up in the near future, as Brant alluded to. But as far as this week's episode is concluded, thank you all so much for listening. Have a great week, and we'll see you next week.
Peace.